Welcome to Drunk Dog Creative. I'm Bridget A, and today I'm going to teach you how to make this beautiful Christmas card using the Winterly Treetops suite from Stampin' Up. The suite comes with a stamp and die bundle, beautiful designer series paper, some embellishments, all different kind of cool things. Of course, each item in the suite can also be purchased individually. But this will give you a basic card layout idea to use with any papers for any occasion. But I've especially done it for Christmas using the Winterly Treetops suite. So this is the card. You can see it's got the die cut bird and it's got a basic design of 3 panels on designer series paper and the embossed front. And then the inside is matted with a little bit of the paper to highlight. It makes a beautiful card, and I love this suite because it's so versatile. These are a couple other cards I made in a different design using the suite. If you want this basic layout, I've got another one on the blog. It's called Elegant Christmas Trees card. That will give you that layout. But this is the card we're going to make today. And this winter, well, it's summer for me in Australia, but it's winter in America. And because I grew up in the US, I still think of Christmas as winter time, which kind of messes with you when it's like 100 degrees hot here on Christmas Day. Anyways, I've gotten into a new color scheme for Christmas besides the traditional reds and greens, and I'm loving it. It's Pretty Peacock with Blackberry Bliss and Lost Lagoon, and paired with either white or basic beige or grays. I am loving this color scheme. It's just a fresh look that's just a little bit different. So this is the main stamp and die set, the Winterly Treetops stamp and die bundle. Again, you can purchase them separately. They're the red rubber stamps, and they have sentiments for other occasions outside of Christmas, so you can use this all year round. Very clever. There's the die set that comes with it, needed 2 magnets to fit in my case. This is a beautiful pine border, and then these die cuts, of course, cut out these images as well as a few others. But here's a really neat thing about this suite. One of the papers that comes with it is this one. And this die will cut out the robin. And this die will cut out these beautiful little birds. So you can use the dies to cut the images from this sheet of paper, and don't forget there's multiple double-sided designs. There's a couple sheets of each. And it will also cut out those stamped images as well. So that's pretty cool that it's that versatile. There's a few designs I'm going to make using the Winterly Treetops suite. This is the first of those. The other one I used is this beautiful Christmas label set. You can see there's some really cool ones. These are the photopolymer, and it's got a matching die set that will cut out the shapes that these fit into. So you can buy the dies and stamps separately, or if you get them together as a bundle, it's discounted. So that's Christmas labels, which of course has made my Peace on Earth label for this one, and the Peace on Earth label for the card I'm going to demonstrate. You can see they're slightly different shapes and colors because of the embossing powder. So let's get into how to make this card. Got all our supplies here. So our card base, which I've used Pretty Peacock. I'm going to give the instructions in metrics, but there will be subtitles below which will have the imperial version because the Australian card size and the US card size are actually different sizes, so a straight conversion doesn't work. So I'll give you both for US and for the rest of the world that works in metrics. Okay, card base, 210 millimeters by 148 millimeters, scored at 105 millimeters, which gives you an Australian A6 card. The metrics will give you a US A2 card. This, of course, is a landscape card, so you just turn it on its side. The mat for the front is 143 millimeters by 100 millimeters. And that goes on the front of the card, and that's Blackberry Bliss. Then I've cut a piece of this double-sided DSP, which is also in that Winterly Treetops Christmas suite. And this DSP is 138 millimeters wide by 95 millimeters tall. And it goes on the front there. So that's your basic of the card base. Then you need a couple other things. You need 3 strips of the Blackberry Bliss, and each of these strips are going to be 35 millimeters wide by 75 millimeters tall. Then you need to cut out of the DSP, and this is another double-sided sheet that's in there that is like birchwood on one side and pussy willows on the other side. I think that's what they're called. So you want these strips to be 30 millimeters wide by 70 millimeters tall. And these are just going to go on there like that, and then onto the front of the card. So I'm using several different DSPs or designer series paper from the suite in order to do this design. And then the inside, and this is always optional, I tend to make my inside as heavy as my outside, meaning almost as many layers, just so the card stands properly. So I've got another piece of Blackberry Bliss that's 100 millimeters wide by 143 millimeters tall. And then I've got a writing panel, which is basic white thick cardstock, which is 95 millimeters wide by 138 millimeters tall. And of course, they're going to layer on each other. And then just for some fun, I took another DSP from the suite and I cut these strips that are 138 millimeters wide by only 15 millimeters tall, because that gives you strips that each have birds on them. And there'll be different birds depending on how they go. And my plan is to just layer it on the bottom there to give a bit of interest to the inside of the card. And of course, you can then stamp Merry Christmas or any other sentiment that you want on here and write on here. So that's an optional extra. All right, so now that we've got our cut plan, let's look at how we're going to put this card together. The first thing I'm going to do is take my front DSP, turn it over. Isn't that beautiful on the other side too? I just love that. I'm going to put my Stampin' Seal tape on each of the edges, and I'm going to center it on the Blackberry Bliss cardstock. This is when I really prefer to use like a grid to get it right. I've got, if you want to know about the white glass mat from Stampin' Up, it's brilliant. I've demonstrated it in some other videos of mine, but it's brilliant for helping line things up, and it's glass, so you can scrape the glue right off. Just so good to work with. Anyways, more Stampin' Seal. I think it goes that way. And then you center it on your card base. All right, so that's done. Then you're going to put your strips together. Sorry, I just thought I better get my silicone sheet if I'm using glue. Because they're strips, I would use glue in case you need to fiddle with it to position it better. So I'm just going to squeeze a dot of glue and then rub it out to the edges. Add a little more if I need to. This glue is very, very, very tacky, so you're going to want a wet Chuck's wipe or a wet wipe nearby to wipe your hands because it's very tacky and it really sticks to your hands. So then I'm going to try to put each of those little strips right in the middle of the Blackberry Bliss mats. So it looks like little birchwood panels. And with the glue, you can wiggle it to get it centered. Whereas with the tape, once it's down and you're done. So if you have fiddly things to center, I would always use the glue rather than the tape. It does set quickly, so you don't have forever, but it gives you enough time to get it into place. And just wipe that off. All right, so then my 3 panels are done. So the next thing I'm going to do is put the panels on the card front. And I would do it by putting the middle one on first. So you can see which pattern you like, you know, if you're fussy about the pattern. And when you cut your DSP, make sure you cut it in the right direction if it's a directional pattern. So the wood, I had to choose whether I wanted it vertical or horizontal. So if I'd wanted it horizontal, I have to cut it the other way. picture it longer, but I wanted it vertical. So just make sure you're cutting the DSP the right way for the alignment that you want. Just finish wiping my hands off. Again, I'm going to use glue because I might need to fiddle with this a little bit. So I'm just putting some glue on here. Make sure I get the edges and the corners. And I'm going to center this one, like really centered. Uh-oh. Got some dried glue on there. I'll wipe that off in a minute. So I'm going to center it top and bottom, and I'm going to center it side to side. Again, a grid is really helpful for this. So is a glue eraser if you accidentally got glue on the front. Now, I think that actually needs to just come a little bit. Yeah, okay, there we go. So once you get the first one on and centered, it's pretty easy to then align the other two. So then you can line these up by, you just want a little gap of about a half a centimeter or so. Just don't be too fussy, but you want to make sure the tops form a straight line, and you've got a little gap there and a wider gap there. And just put that down and then match it. I should have put this down flat, sorry. All right, and then you kind of match that on the other side. And if you work quickly enough, if you don't have it quite right, you might be able to just take your pick and just lift it a little bit and wiggle it. But I've left that a little too long, but that's okay. It's all good. Put the cap on my glue. I tend to always put caps on right away and put things back in their place right away so I know where they are next time I need them. I will be back in a second. All right, I went to get my glue eraser because if you do get bits of glue on the front, once it dries, you can just gently rub it with a glue eraser and those little dried bits of glue will come straight off. It's one of those useful tools everyone should have in their kit. All right, now back to the important stuff. So that's the basics of the card itself. It's this 3 panels. This is a fairly common layout for cards, but it's how you use the colors and the papers that matter. So what I'm going to do now with it is decorate it a bit. So I have die cut the bluebirds from the DSP using the die in the set, and I have embossed my sentiment on some pretty peacock paper and then used white embossing powder and a heat tool to dry it. And I'm not doing that on camera because I have other demonstrations of that, and there's lots of places you can figure out how to do that. So to save time, I've done it. And again, I've die cut this slightly different. It's a different die cut to the other one in a different color, but I'm going to give you a tip for white on dark colors. If you use Versamark and white embossing powder, it sometimes goes a little bit more translucent than opaque. So when I want white embossing powder on a dark color, I stamp it in white. This is the Stampin' Up! Craft stamping pad in white, and it comes with an ink refill, and you fill as you need. But by stamping in white and then using white embossing powder, it sets a bit better. Anyways, I've got my bird and my sentiment, and this is the easy part. I'm going to take some Stampin' Up! Dimensionals. If you've seen my videos, you know how much I love these. I'm going to turn my bird over, and I'm going to put 3 of these on there using my take your pick. I'm going to put 1 in the middle of the berries. Sorry, I keep moving around. I'm going to put 1 there. You don't have to overdo these, but you do want your to have a balance for your design. And this just lifts it up off the card a little bit and gives some dimension to the card. So I already know kind of where I want to place this, but it helps if you take your sentiment because I want it to look like that's coming out of the sentiment and I want to make sure it fits. So I kind of want to put my birds about there, and I want them, sometimes having them hang over the framing device gives it that little bit of extra interest. So don't keep it all within those 3 panels. Let it hang over a little bit. And then I'm going to take my sentiment and put 2 dimensionals on there. And if you look closely at this die cut, you can see that it kind of cuts bits that are kind of left open. And with that, you can just kind of, they're meant to give it a bit of extra interest. So you just leave those alone and don't put glue over those cuts. So now I've got my dimensionals on here. I'm going to peel the backings off. And I want to place this so that it just covers the edge of the branch, but also goes off a little bit, but not all the way off. So I'm going to kind of place it, and I want it down this way a little bit. So I'm going to kind of put it there. I think that's a good balance. So that's the front of my card, but I'm also going to add just a touch of sparkle to it. So I've got these, get the name right, iridescent faceted gems from Stampin' Up. And I'm just going to take my pick. See, that glue is so tacky, things are sticking to me now. I'm going to take my pick putty. I need to push up a little bit more putty. So this is my #1 tool that I use for everything. It's got a blade and a pick. And believe me, I use that a lot. It's also got a double-ended stylus that fits in, and there's other tools you can get that fit it. And then it's got a putty edge, which is so useful for using the adhesive embellishments. So I'm going to take just pick up one of the large embellishments and put it in that corner. And then I'm going to grab one of the small ones and just put it diagonally from it. And I'm going to pick up another small one and put it down there. You don't have to overdo the embellishments, just a couple scattered. See how that balances out the image that's here? It just gives it some balance. So that is the front of my card finished. That quick, that easy. What I'm also going to do, however, is fix up this. Now, I am going to use tape for this because I'm fairly confident in aligning this one. So I'm just going to do a big strip. And I'm just going to start by getting that corner lined up and then making sure the edge is even all the way to the other corner. And that just adds a little bit of interest to the writing panel, which I'm now going to put some tape on and tape to its mat, which again is the Blackberry Bliss. You could probably also use Lost Lagoon for this. That would look really pretty too. But I like that deep richness of the Blackberry Bliss. And then I'm going to affix this to the inside of the card. Now, if I was going to stamp a sentiment on there, I would have done it before this. I would have put this strip on and then stamped whatever I was going to stamp before I added it to its mat. But because I'm not going to, I'm going to leave it like that and then handwrite my message. And there is the beautiful Winterly Treetops Peace on Earth card. So the versatility of this suite is pretty amazing. As you can see, I used a different card design with the Winterly Treetops DSP, both in that color scheme and also a traditional red and green color scheme. But I think this is a really beautiful use. I'll be doing another tutorial with this suite coming soon using a more traditional red and green color scheme. So wait for that one when it's coming. Different design again. Thank you for watching and happy making!